Gjirokastra it's a magical place. It's a really unique setting. It's vernacular architecture and it's adapted to the territory and to the needs of the people on territory. We have, of course, the surrounding. We have the beautiful views on the valley, which give a special meaning to the city, and we have the fortress, which was built in a different period until the very late ones during Ali Pasha's time in the beginning of the 19th century. In more peaceful times, the city developed with the old bazaar, with the new bazaar, and then, of course, with the houses of the big families. Gjirokastra is not only the cities and the houses, it's very famous for its fortified houses, for most of them, but its entirety, so how it works, how the city works together is very unique and special. Cultural Heritage Without Borders starts in Albania in 2007 with the camps, because Albania was seen as a neutral territory within the Balkans, and a program like camps for young professionals and generations from the whole region was seen as a way to bring them together and also to fill, let's say, the gaps that are created within these different countries through politics and through wars and through everything that this region went through. The camps were really seen as a way to promote cultural heritage, to make people come and work together, also to help removing at least mental boundaries and understanding that when we come together we really can understand better our history, our past and the future. Talking a bit about the model of the camps, they are developed and they have gone through a process of developing which was very flexible and adapted to different situations in the region, of course, and different thematics. But basically what the camps are, when you go and see the program, is lectures combined and linked directly to the work on site.
Cultural heritage is, I believe, everybody knows, that expression of the ways of living. And I will stress the ways of living because I will stress also the connection between the tangible and the intangible dimension of the cultural heritage. So it is an expression of the ways of living which is developed by a community and is passed on from generation to generation, including the customs, the practices, the beliefs, the ways of building, the artistic expressions and the values.
So it's really this combination of practical work that is missing in most of the, let's say, theoretical background of many of the participants who come here from their universities. They really enjoy this, but of course we try to bring together best practices and professionals from around the world and also from the country, so we do this combination.
In ancient Greek, the word for wood is ili, which means the material. So a lot of myths go together with timber, at least in my country, not in yours. One of the myths is that wood is not for long-lasting structures. But if we see around us, this is not happening, but we have to look for it. Is actually durability a myth? I think yes. Because if we look to the state churches of Norway, in Norway, these kind of churches are still there since 11th and 12th century.
We've had lectures on the main traditional building materials like timber, like stone, like mortars. Well, as we said, I'm an architect and I'm already a specialist in heritage, so basically the material that the lectures covered was no news to me, but it's always good to have a refresher and always good to have a new perspective because, well, for example, I tend to be more from the French School of Restoration, and here we had a Greek specialist, we had a British specialist, and it's always good to see those small little differences in practice, and it's always very enriching.
This camp is very important because it's one of the rare occasions that combines theory and practice. And the participants can learn all the theoretical background, but also that's the most precious thing is that they apply what they learn, and all this work goes back to the village, to the city, to the town. They give all this effort back.
So we have lectures combining theoretical part with working on site, and we are working in listed heritage buildings, which means that this is a real work, that this is serving the community, this is serving the country, and this is of course serving everyone who enjoys and visits Gjirokastra, and of course on the sites where we are working.
What is important is in your page, when you do the plan, it's always important to put the name of the building, what you are drawing, like the entrance, let's say room plan or section. You put a date and you put also your name, who did the sketch. So, because when you go back, you might have like 20 drawings, and might have like several separate drawings for each room, for example, and you cannot make the connections. So you always have a main.
Another activity we have here on site in the Gjirokastra is the work on architectural survey, basically an exercise on a house that is currently being restored by the Cultural Heritage Without Border. And well, it's a house of a prominent figure in the history of Gjirokastra, and the house itself is very interesting. So there are some specific things about architectural surveying, especially in cultural heritage, where we talk about buildings that are at least 100, 200, 300 years old. Basically, you don't have straight lines, you don't have straight angles, and measuring these structures can be tricky, and it's a good exercise in geometry. The few of us who are architects, we have the possibility to show or to introduce some of the other students, which are archaeologists or heritage managers, to the specificities of architectural surveying. And I think that they will benefit from the experience, as they will probably work with architects in the future, and they will know what actually happens when architects do a survey.
This year was a bit special for the camps because we moved from Gjirokastra. For the first time we had groups working in the village of Doksat with the idea of following the needs and also following, let's say, the needs of the stakeholders we are working with, but also understanding that Gjirokastra doesn't work alone. But Gjirokastra is as I said, in a beautiful valley that is full of culture and heritage, and it needs to work all together. We cannot develop and be working and giving attention to one city without seeing the whole picture of it.
Is it like 15 minutes with the car?
Yes, basically.
Here we are.
Aha.
Oh.
And after we will take up the roof and some part of new walls, because the roof is new also. It's new. It's from the time after 1965.
As an architect, I have always tried to push myself to go much more on site and work really hands-on, not just stay the white scarf architect guiding people from far away. I really tend to want to be on site on the terrain. And during all my practice, I've always strived to do this, and this is just a good occasion to do it some more, while learning more from the local craftsmen.
Pasi do mbarojmë këtë punëtërlimin e këtij harku ta mbajmë në pozicionin që është, do fillojmë heqjen e zmontimin e çatisë. Në fillim do heqim mbulesën që janë bërë prej tegullave, do vendosemi në radhë të gjithë dhe do kaloj poshtë. Pastaj do fillojmë të smontojmë trarët e çatisë. Petavre që quhet, pas petavës është mahia, pastaj janë tabanët, pastaj janë këto shtyllat kolonat.
In Albania, I think my feeling is that there are still enough craftsmen and craftsmen young enough to be able to transmit what they know. And that's really a rich experience for me, the way to exchange with them, to exchange knowledge, and to basically to gain from them. We work on a quite special site. Basically, it's a gate. It's a gate to a house that was built in the 19th century. And it's a beautiful stone gate, basically sandstone gate, which has suffered quite a lot of peripecides during the centuries, and is now in need of attention, and that's what we're trying to do. We started by stabilizing the gate in order to be able to make interventions on it without it being dangerous for the people, because we have to say that this gate, although in repairs, needs to be used because that's the only access to the people who live behind. So it has to be safe and it has to be practical to pass through. And basically we had to reinforce the arch, remove the roof, lightening the load on the arch, and then starting to see how to repair, how to comfort, how to put back in place the arch. And of course, as always in heritage, you make a study, you make a beautiful project, and then when you open the structure, you have surprises, and you have to change your plan of operations. In the 1960s, the roof was removed. Sometimes after, they put a new roof on it with basic materials and with tiles. So this one had to be removed and replaced, hopefully, after we finish the restoration, with something more authentic, some better woodwork and some original tiles.
Tani, ky material është përdorur këtu, si shikoj unë që e njoh, quhet është rap. Do të thënë, ky është material vendi. Këtu. Po kjo zonë ka material dhe lis. Ka dhe rap, breth nuk ka. Besoj, gështoj nuk ka. Në rregull moti? Ka gështoj këtu? Jo. Kjo është rap. Kjo material që është këtu është rap. Një minutë. Se se i do t'ja.
The roof that we found on site was built in the 1960s, and it was a roof with basic wooden construction and tiles, which were not typical, but they were available at that time. They're easier to work with, and overall they're lighter. So I guess that people decided not to overload the roof, and they put this the arch. They put this lighter roof. But now, when we're consolidating the arch, anyway, we'll have to put a new wooden construction, hopefully better than the previous, and we will put back stone slabs, which are traditional for the region, and well, that's the authentic way to do it here.
I came to the camp in order to expand my knowledge of the World Heritage sites, since Gjirokastra is one of the World Heritage cities. I heard for this camp from a friend of mine who suggested me to come, and my group works on a project that's related to the St. Mary's Spring. It's a small spring that's situated in the forest below the village. Spring, or Ayasma, as they call it on Greek, represents Holy Spring, place where people come during certain days, especially on the St. Mary's Day, to perform their rituals. They believe that the water is holy, and this belief is especially held for the Greek community, Orthodox Greek community of the village of Doksat. My group is working in front of the spring, and our main aim is to create a resting place and a place in front of the spring to make it more accessible for older people who are coming to the spring. I think for me it's really interesting to work there because it offers me a way to learn the dry stone walling technique, which is a traditional technique, I would say, all over the Balkans. Even in Montenegro we have it, Croatia has it, and since last year it's been considered an intangible World Heritage. The dry stone walling technique, it's good as you don't need any other connecting material, you just need stones, and in that way it's really ecological and economical, and it's really interesting to work it because you have to reshape the stones, and it's actually like a puzzle in a way. So yes, we are doing that in the area that's just in front of the spring. We are also hoping that we'll be able to finish the stairs that are going from the village actually to the spring, so people can access it more easily. And we are also cleaning the area to look nice and tidy, so people can enjoy their time at the site. At the end, I'm really happy that I've chosen to work on the site, the St. Mary's Spring, and the area it looks really special, and it has a certain level of spirituality. It absolutely has a lot of beauty.
Because I took one from the other tree and they weren't ripe enough. Yeah. They came out white. Yeah. This game, which we named Playing Through Time, we made it for our interpretation class. It needed to be focused on the nature, life, and customs of Doksat. Which one do you want to play?
I would pick the third one.
Okay. Choose a dice and play. Which
Number one.
It's a villager going up the mountain, and at the highest peak there was this spring. I don't know the name of the spring, but I can tell you that it has a shrine, and I think it's Orthodox by the way they pray. You can also, we found this poem that it's in Albanian, and Joanna can read it to you. Whoever.
100 shtëpi si një janë, brenda historinë që kanë, çduar i ndërtuan vallë, ato duar të argjenda, bukuri jashtë edhe brenda, ku të veshës ta ka ënda, ku të vete unë e di, poshtë mirë ta dish dhe ti, atje ku nxirret rakia, bëhen dasma me lolli, në Doksat ku buqet kënga, si na e mësoj mama, se pema mbahet të rënja, kjo pema me dekshum, ti dërgon uri me plum, o jëmbli Doksat.
I come from Tirana. And my parents, they have their roots here in Gjirokastra. And to come back here is wonderful. Now I work as a volunteer, and 3 years before I was a participant. Me and my group, we are working in the middle fontaine. This middle fontaine was constructed in 19th century. It is important because it is in the entrance of the village, and everyone is connected with this fontaine.
It's very interesting to visit the Wells cover project just as it was starting. The scaffold was erected and one could see that the dry stone roof was failing, and there was evidence of plastic sheet underneath. And from the underside there's timber boarding and planks, some of which are degenerated. When we arrived, the craftsman said we were going to take all the stone slate off. We were then going to remove all of the timbers, and I thought the timbers didn't need to be removed. And the conservation philosophy that we have is we try to preserve as much of the historic fabric as found as possible. Now, it's not particularly historic fabric. It's been re-roofed at some time in the past 20 years, so it's not that old, but it's there. And so with Elena, we suggested to him that let's see, when we have the stone off, whether we do need to replace all of the planks, and we've agreed now that we don't need to replace the planks. So A, we save timber for the world's resources. B, stuff that's been there for 20 years can do another 20 years now. But, so it's a nice project. It's a village community asset. And it's an ideal project for students because they can get dirty and then carry stuff, and and they'll probably be able to see it finished in their time here for the satisfaction. And the craftsman seems to be prepared to allow them to do things, because quite a lot of the projects through the years have ended up being the craftsman doing the work and the student kind of hand the hammer or fetch the stone or something like that and not get involved.
Working with these traditional materials is wonderful, and it's so important that we can learn this thing by our craftsman. And his name is Arif. He's so amazing. He teaches us how to work with each other and how to love the culture heritage.
Kështu deri në 50 cm do me thonë nevojitet. 50 cm. Jo 50. Po që ma e gjatë e presim na, pa mera.
As we said, we're working on a gate from the Ottoman period, and in that period houses were very privative, so most of the times you didn't see directly someone's house from the street. Well, there was a big courtyard, the house was in the back of the courtyard. What you saw from the street is the gate. The gate was some sort of calling card of the owner of the house. The facade, which is towards the street, was very carefully and well done in beautiful sandstone, because sandstone, although being softer for construction, is much easier to carve, so they needed it to make all these beautiful engravings. At some point in the 1960s, the original roof of the gates was removed, and the gate was roofless for maybe 10-15 years. So it was exposed to the elements, especially to rain, and which washed away all the mortar joints. And the gate was basically free to open up. An arch pushes sideways, so the gate opened up, got deformations, and basically these are all these cracks you can see today. Plan of intervention was, after removing the roof, to basically inspect the stones one by one, give them each a number, because, well, we needed to know each stone, the place of each stone in case they had to be dismantled and put back. So basically we went there, we identified each stone, We cleaned the joints between them in order to liberate them, and then started dismantling the upper parts in order to lighten the load on the arch and see, well, basically putting back in place of the arch easier. And that's what we did. The stones that were taken down had to be cleaned very carefully in order to remove any traces of old mortar and debris on them. After that, we make lime mortar. We put one proportion of mortar and then 2 proportions of aggregates, depending on the needs. And the operation will go as, well, basically putting back stone by stone, but this time with good mortar. And then again, looking at the arch and its behavior, because even during the putting back of the stones, you can still have some movement. So it will be a long and careful process, and we'll have to do it very carefully.
I heard about the cultural heritage without borders in a lecture from my professor. He mentioned what they do and the sort of link between material culture and people, and not just, you know, building something and then it's sort of in a bubble forever, but that people should be engaged with it. I was interested and I asked my professor for help, and he got me in connection with the people in Albania. For my thesis, I am planning to use my internship here in Cultural Heritage Without Borders to gather data on what it means to be together as people, as what's called a community, and what heritage means to this. It's work that they have been doing before, trying to connect people. And while it's a badly theorized topic, I hope to shed new light in using heritage as part of understanding this in a new way. What I will take from here is the newgain respect for craft works, how that is a difficult trade to engage with, and how the knowledge about materials and tools are sometimes taken for granted. It's a hard trade and requires really a lot of work.
I also like the importance of working with smaller organizations, as they give us an opportunity to learn more and to work hands-on. That experience is really beneficial for everyone who's sort of an emerging professional in the field of heritage, of architecture and other related fields.
For me, this experience at the Cultural Heritage Without Border camp was truly amazing. It was a great experience, not only as an architect, as a specialist, but also as a human being, because, well, this contacts we made with the students, with the professors, with the local people, basically it really showed me that the things that we have in common as human beings and as cultures are many, many more than the things that separate us. And to me, that's the most important.
As always, when we come to the end, we can see what happened throughout these 2 weeks. We can see the bonding being created, and we can see that they leave behind part of their work and part of their heart and their mind in Gjirokastra. And we hope that participants, after they leave the camp, they will continue to work and they continue to care about cultural heritage, and they will understand what happened here and the work they did and why we are doing all this.
Between the participants, we sort of form this bond, and in a way everyone here is a student and everyone is a teacher. So it's really interesting how we are exchanging our knowledge, and that is beneficial for all of us to upgrade what we already know.
It's a whole new body of knowledge that I have to adapt to, which means that I also have to go back to square one in many cases to figure out what it means to be together and what it means to think together. And from there I hope to see what it means to incorporate heritage in this and what constitutes as heritage. And the work with the Cultural Heritage Without Borders is in many ways doing this, bringing people together in new ways and making sure that it's tied to something. In this case, it's heritage. My professor used to have this sentence in the end of his presentations that we should be a good ancestor for the future, and that's why we're in the field that we are, no matter which direction we're taking. It's to be a good ancestor, to leave the world in a decent shape for the future.